what this is going to do.
Do you mind? Do you think he minds?
It's going to help prevent
I gotta do this.
from burning. So if you look at it, if you catch the light, you can see it looks almost like one of your kids took a crayon to a crayoning book. Okay?
What about dripping it off the iron? You know, doing a drip bead and then drip.
Right.
So you're doing this first, and then you're going to drip it, right?
Then I'm going to drip.
Okay.
Right. So once you do that, there are two ways, and after you've done this for a while, you won't have to do that anymore. Okay? In the beginning, just to be safe. Okay? Now, the way to get this wax onto
Sorry,
the ski,
I
though,
have to.
to melt it in, is there are two different ways. You can drip, or you can crayon again, but use the iron. So if you're going to drip, I just put the iron against, or the wax against the iron, and I let it drip off a corner of the iron and onto the ski.
Can you touch the iron to the ski and scoot it down, or do you recommend not touching? And kind of zigzag down, do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I'm not going to do it because it's not my ski. I used to do it that way, and I quit because I burnt the base. In that little bit of an area
You did,
where
huh?
where the iron went down, eventually, you know, because I always went down the center of each side, eventually I ended up with a little base burn in there. So, now, that's dripping. Come on up and look at this. Especially if you're new, if you haven't done it before. I've got those drips on there, okay? And when you start doing this yourself, you're going to have more drops in there. That's okay. It's better off in the beginning to have a little more than a little less. But after you do it enough, you'll get better at it. Each time you'll get a little bit better, and it'll be a little bit easier. The other way to do this, and what a lot of like the high school coaches like their kids to do, is they like them to rub the wax on here and then crayon it on, just like this.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And,
You're actually getting both by doing that,
Yeah.
too, aren't you?
I like
well, you know what, I am, and the reason I'm doing that is because, you know, I do a lot of work with high schoolers, and high school coaches love their kids to do this because they think they use less wax. But the thing they don't realize is, you know, the coaches always want to get out of the wax room when the kids are waxing. Okay, so the kids are listening to music, and it's a social event in there, and they're sitting here like this with the iron over here, like you can see. I put a few drops down there, and then they go over like, and most of the wax ends up on the floor. So the kids don't use less. I think they end up using more, but the coach feels better about it. So now I have that wax on there, and now I'm going to go down with the iron. And this, you know what? I'm going to hold this iron backwards. It's peculiar to this iron that Toko came out with several years ago, and you can't get it anymore, so just assume I'm going the
Now, the iron's
front
smoking
ways.
right now, is that because it's hot for this wax? Or is it because it's got other stuff on it that's...
Just wax still melting off.
I think the wax was still on there from before. So now I'm passing down the ski, and I can go slow, and you see the wax melt.
it. It was a lot slower than.
Oh, that looks good.
I'll slow it on
Is it safer to lower the temperature a little bit, or
What's that?
is the iron a little too hot at this point?
Well, your skis bubbled there, Steve.
And you
Well,
do
to be
one
safe.
continuous
Yes.
tip to
So
tail.
I was always moving it.
I was
Yeah,
I'm
I
kinda picking
move
it up
it
and
too.
going,
Okay, we don't want to heat this. Remember, this melts at a temperature that is below the temperature of the iron. So when we go down the ski, we don't want to go back and forth. We don't want to leave it sit in one spot. And the only two things that we can vary with this iron once we start ironing is the temperature of the iron and the speed that we go down. Okay, so, and you're going to find you have to vary the temperature because, I hate that smoke. I'll cover that in a minute.
Now, that's a really soft wax.
This is a really soft
so it
wax.
melts at a very low.
Yes, exactly. You're going to have a higher temperature when you've got a colder wax, and the colder
Right.
waxes are easier, harder to put on. Okay, but also the first time I go down the ski, I can go slower
Because the ski's cold.
because the ski's cold. And the next ride, and I'm going to go down a couple more times, but each time I should be going a little bit faster because that ski and the base is warming up. Okay.
So you'll actually iron this again without putting more wax.
Yes, right. Right, I would probably go down this ski, well, at least twice and maybe 3 times.
To really get the wax to penetrate.
Yes, right. Now, if you put too much heat in, even with all this wax on, you'll burn the base, okay? So how do we know when we're done making trips down the ski with our iron? And the way we're gonna do that is put our hand on here, okay? And when I like to use this part of my thumb, but you can use any part you want, your thumb or up here or whatever, but when you can put your hand on here and it's hot enough where you want to pull your hand away right away, then you're done. That's a good test. And again, as you do this more and more, you'll learn. I don't have to do much of this anymore because I know if I go 2 or 3 trips down the ski, I'm good, okay? But this is a great way to test, and so I'm going to go down a couple more trips down the ski, and any of you who want to, I'd like you to come up and put your hand on and feel the wax. It should feel comfortably warm, but not where you want to pull your hand away. And you'll see it gets molten, especially with this softer wax. Of course, don't put your hand in there because then you're going to have wax all over your hand.
I find on my skis that the ends end up heating up a lot faster than the
They
middle.
do.
Is that okay?
They do. And so as you speed up,
There's less material to absorb
Right.
the heat.
you'll notice here, I am probably going slower. I should be. I'm trying to go slower in the middle of the ski than I do on the tip and the tail.
Can you comment why you don't want to go back and forth? Why take just one trip down?
I will, but let's do this. Let me go down one more time so people can then come and feel what the ski, how warm it is.
Okay.
By the way, you're right, this actually is the best spot to test. It's called the thenar eminence, and it's the most sensitive to hot and cold.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, they do, I did some pain studies at one point, and that's the spot on the hand that they will test with hot and cold because you're very sensitive to those areas.
Okay, great.
So you were right.
So now, this is when you want us
Yeah.
to test?
Uh-huh.
And now where it's still liquid.
Yeah, which is most of it.
No way.
You might want to let it cool down.
That's hotter
Back
than
your hand.
I get at my skis. No, that's hotter.